I'm Shirley, and I'm an addict. This is almost too much. God, I just want to start off by saying that my sponsor always taught me that we can choke to death on gratitude just like we can resentment if we're not sharing what we have with others. And I am just so grateful to have been selected by this special little hand-picked committee by God. I've been with all of them for the last couple of days here in the hotel and have spent a couple of days with Dano and Vicki when I got here. As soon as I got off the plane, she rushed me off to a meeting. And when I first got off the plane, and I swear to you this is the very, very truth, I was sitting with the Butts sisters from Minnesota. And they were both brought in wheelchairs, and they were both, I was up against the wall where I worked my best steps. and they told me how sick they were. I told them, well, I feel good, so maybe I can help. And I listened to them piss and moan all the way to Colorado. And they made me feel so good because it was like looking at myself a week ago. That's saying I ain't, and you're going to find that out. And when I got off the plane, I'm a kind of simple, down-to-earth type woman, that's grateful for the next breath I take. And when I was getting off the plane, I felt like like Vicki was saying, like I needed to be vacuum cleaned. I had peanuts and shit all over me, like I always do, after I eat something. And I was getting off, and the Butt sisters had given me room to breathe. And I'm coming off that little thing, and I saw this woman that looked like airline stewardess, queen of the world type woman, and this perfect blonde hairdo, and tall and slim. Like I wrote about them broads in my inventory. All right. And I said, "Okay, God, if that's her, I can do 2 days and be good." Till my room pops up. And then behind her, there was this really neat little lady with those eyes, the Narcotics Anonymous eyes, and a little 4-year-old girl waving an NA pennant. I said, thank God, it was Vicki. And we jumped in her little car, the attic car. She popped a cigarette in her mouth and said, shit. And I said, oh, I'm home. Oh, man. And she took me straight to a women's stag out here, and it's the night of my women's home group, out there where I live. And I walked in. Of course, I was terrified, so they asked me to leave the meeting. And the topic was how it feels never to be alone again. And from there we went to their house, and it's just been the excitement has just been building. I've never done this before, but with all the list and everything, I want to tell you why I owe my life, everything I am, to Narcotics Anonymous. I'm going to name off some names here in years, all right? Shirley, that's me, 12 years. My husband, Alfonso, will be celebrating 8 years on Narcotics Anonymous' birthday. He did 31 years locked up in prison. He was one of the first types in East L.A. He opened up Soledad Prison in California. My brother-in-law, Jim, did 5 years out there in New Mexico in that Santa Fe prison, 8 years. His wife, Debbie, my little sister, 8 years, started Narcotics Anonymous out in the desert. The phone line was in their house for 6 years. My sister almost died in an intensive care ward for making a 12-step call on a teenager that had the measles, and she carried her out of the house to a meeting and got the measles, and my sister almost died. That's the love of an addict, all right? Susan, my Harley-Davidson sister, who had a daughter murdered in 1965 and a 15-year-old son that killed himself when he was 15 years old. 2 years clean 3 weeks ago. Bobby, my oldest son, a heroin addict and little gangbanger that used to be in those shootouts on the streets. 7 years clean in Narcotics Anonymous. My son Frankie, who was locked up in a psychiatric ward when he was 15 years old after my nephew committed suicide, and Frankie was there with him and went into a depression for 2 years. And they told me that he would never even be able to talk again. Graduated as an honor student from the school that he was going to, celebrating 5 years clean in Narcotics Anonymous. His little sister Jennifer, one of the first teenagers out in Southern California in the San Bernardino area out there to get clean, who was born strung out on heroin. 6 years clean. And her husband Dallas, 6 years clean. My son-in-law Jaime, him and my one daughter that's not an addict, have 4 children. And they've gone through hell and back. He has 1.5 years clean. My nephew Jimmy, 4 years clean. My nephew Gilbert, 6 years clean. My little nephew Jeff, whose mother died of an overdose, who was my best friend, and his father died in San Quentin prison of a tumor. 60 days clean. And on the phone today, I was talking to my sister that lost her other 2 children. Her one remaining child, her daughter, has 7 days clean, she told me today. I've never done that. And also my mother has 5 years in a program for the family. So that's 80 years between us all. So anyway, I've never done that before, and when I started writing it down, I said, wow, you know, the theme of this convention is hope. And all my life, since I can remember, I had lost hope in ever being like what you guys look like on the outside right now. You look beautiful. Everybody looks like they've got it together. Thank God I know it's Narcotics Anonymous. We're the masters of disguises, you know. And when I was a kid, I grew up in a family that a good fight, you know, was like they fought. I mean, I come by my disease honestly. They yelled, they screamed, they got things out that way, but I was always a little bit different. That screaming and yelling and all that kind of stuff scared me. And I'm the oldest of 5 children, and my mother supported us by working in bars and wherever my mom could find jobs. You know, she just had to do a lot of things that she had to do to support us. And this story ain't about my mother, so I'm not going to go into that a lot. I'm just grateful today that my mother loves me and that she forgave me when I made amends to her. I want to kind of like just get into recovery, but, you know, I think it's important to identify. See, we have newcomers here, and the identification was what helped me in the beginning. And sometimes I have to tell you, it helps me today. Cut a long story short, though, we finally, after being gypsies and moving all over California, I was born in San Jose, we settled in a little town named Barstow out in the desert. And, yeah, we had one of them. But we settled there, and that's where I started, for the first time in my life, kind of getting to know people a little bit, because we had moved, seemed like about every 6 months until that time, and I had lived from various times with my grandparents, aunts and uncles, and as kids would be split up and that sort of thing. So when I got there, I started kind of having friends and that sort of thing. And what happened for me, though, is the thing that happens, I think, well, I don't know about you, so I'm just going to talk about me, all right? I learned how to start acting, okay, because I was an introvert that learned how to act like an extrovert. I started making jokes out of my life. The way that I could fit in with those girls that had the pretty little ruffly bedrooms and mom and dad sitting at the table eating poached eggs and all that stuff on Saturday morning was to laugh about my life. I'd make up jokes, and that made people, like want to be with me. Finally, thank God I didn't have to go through all that excruciating pain for too long, of feeling real uncomfortable. And I couldn't even walk across the classroom at school without trembling all over, scared somebody'd be looking at me. I didn't know then that was self-centeredness and all that stuff. But that's what it was. I was real self-conscious, afraid of people. I'd hear people in conversations, talking and stuff, with other kids, and I'd have like a joke or something to tell or something, and I'd think, I know something funny too, and I'd think about it so long they'd already be on to another subject, because I was afraid of making a mistake. I was afraid of the thing that kills a lot of addicts around Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't want to look bad, and so I wouldn't open my mouth, better what's that old saying about to be quiet and look like a fool and open your mouth and prove beyond all doubt or something that you are, Sometimes I think some people should do that. Anyway, where'd that come from? Anyway, so that's kind of the way I was, just kind of fear-ridden. And in those days, this was back in the 50s out there, it was like Doris Day and all that stuff, and none of them really made a big impression on me, honestly, because they all looked, well, Doris Day looked like that woman I thought was the airline stewardess, and she never impressed me then, didn't impress me now. So, but I did like, the guys, you youngsters did not invent lowriders, okay? When I saw that first little Chevy drive down the street, little maroon 49 Chevy lowered down, said wine, wine, wine on the side. I was in love. and he had a hair, those old pachucos, they used to wear those big, yeah, there you are, you got it. And my husband, his legs were probably about I married him later, I already gave it up. His legs were probably about 3 inches long, looked like, in those long coats and the shoes with the high heels and all that stuff, and he could dance, we used to do that Pachuco hop and all that stuff. I mean, just made my little heart go pitter-patter, pitter-patter, and I was just, he couldn't talk, but who cared, because they were all cool. They were all real cool. We listened to all these the goodies. We went to parties in the projects. And, I guess to cut the story down, I never got out of the projects till I was 40 years old, But anyway, that was what started attraction to another. See, that was like an excitement, like I heard a woman say one time that she exchanged happiness for excitement, and I couldn't find that thing within, so I looked out there, and to me that was it. So later on, we got married, and I moved to Tortilla Flats with his mom, which is like, And we moved in with my mother-in-law. I had 3 kids while we were together, and my sister-in-law had 4. She had 1 bedroom. We had 1 bedroom. And then my other brother-in-law, he had a room. And, of course, like my mother-in-law, to me became like, that woman just gave me so much love and everything. Her and my father-in-law slept on the couch in the living room. And that was how we lived. And she supported us for a few years. But during those years was when my husband and a few other people brought heroin into Barstow. And this was back in 57, 58. And they had their first raid out there. And, and that thing started. The thing started. Me, I was sort of the Betty Crocker of Tortilla Flats. I was trying to take care of everybody. It looked like there was a terrible virus going around. I didn't know what it was, And one minute he'd been knocking hell out of me on Saturdays, and everybody eat menudo on Sundays, and now they're all got their heads on their chest, like this, and they want to drink Kool-Aid day and night. Well, it's a cheaper habit, and so I didn't know what was up, and I back in the 50s I didn't know nothing. We have what? That movie, The Man with a Golden Arm. What the hell did that mean? And I couldn't even connect with Frank Sinatra. I mean, give me a break. So anyway, started my life there. My husband was a batterer, a maniac, just a regular Chican. Órale, pues. and of course, well, I'm part Indian, part Dutch, but after that I moved to the flats, and the barrio from then on, that's like, Mexican by injection, You can take that any way you want to. Because there's some fine. I'm telling you. And so anyway, my family's a mixed bag. We have had everything in our family except no Chinese yet, But God has a sense of humor with us, And what I like about, I'll just throw this in real quick. I always get mixed up, but, I blame it on methadone like a lot of other people do, But anyway, see? It's gone. I work at the California Institution for Women out there at Chino in California, in this new drug program we opened up. And this woman there wrote this poem because ethnically it's balanced, all right? There's no such thing as more this or more that anymore in the women's prison system, man. Disease is killing. It's an equal opportunity destroyer, all right? And this woman wrote a poem about the loneliness and losing our children, losing our soul, losing our lives, losing our dignity. And she says, and I call this name Every Woman, and that's what I think Narcotics Anonymous is about. Every woman and every man that has had to lose the best parts of their lives to drug addiction. So anyway, to go on with my story, I finally left, and I got away from him. He went to jail for beating me up the last time because there was blood showing, If I'd have known they'd throw him in jail for that, I would have cut myself before that. I was not above lying. And I'm a damn good liar, too. All right? So anyway, I left him for you know what, ladies? His best friend. I always had one in the back door. And if mine didn't work, I'd take yours. But he was one of them too, and he didn't last too long, and they just opened up Norco out there in California, and, he went to jail, and he said, you're going to be true to me. Swear to God. Till you're gone, honey. A silly question to ask someone, all right? The way, I didn't have a brain, I was like naive, weird woman, And I'd moved from Barstow down to San Bernardino, and that was like in 62 or 63. He went to jail, and I met this guy who, all right, they used to have a thing called nailing for the parolees, like glory, when they get out, they'd get this nailing. They could tell if they had been using heroin. So they all used to meet at my house on that night because we were doing a little stuff there. And I met this guy. All right, I was just a fool, one of them women. What do they call them women that criminals, you take care of every criminal in the world? Codependent. Don't you just love that shit? To call us a Narcotics Anonymous, those names they for us were thicker than that. But anyway, this makes me laugh. I swear to God, I don't mess with it. I got the 12 steps. But anyway, opinions. Okay, so anyway, what was happening is, this guy had a jacket on. This one guy had a jacket on, and it said manager. And I said, Jesus Christ, finally executive material, That guy ran a gas station. I had never met nobody that high up, And his name was Chewy. And he just loved the heck out of me, I got with Chewy, and to make a long story short, one day he called me in the bathroom, said, hold out your arm, and being the, people pleaser that I was, the word no's never been in my vocabulary, So I said, okay, so I did it, so off went my 19 years or whatever of hell, During that time, I had another 2 children from the guy that got back out of Norco. And I'm not going to drag you through my romantic history, but let's just say like this, okay? To get me off the hook. I don't care about you tonight. Get me off the hook. It's like when they would get out of the joint and come to this little bar there in the neighborhood in San Bernardino. Well, it was one of those bars where when you come through the back door, they had a gas mask hanging there for you to take a big, okay? And then you go in and all the connections and everything. Well, I always knew somebody was getting out with their gate money, all right? So I'd be there, I'd hang out after I get well and stuff, after the last one left. And I'd be waiting for me, you know, you can recognize them right away. They'd be sitting next to you in the bar, you know, they're all buffed up, you know, fresh off the Folsom Yard, and, you know. But I liked them especially if they had, you know, like slices off their face, you know. I know I can fix that one, you know. Back one time I was sitting there, forgot to tell you about my disguises. Nobody was looking for me, but I wore disguises, you know. And this night I had on my red wig with the ponytails and my 3 pairs of eyelashes, okay? Now, when I came out of the bedroom, I ordered that one in the mail order catalog. And because I wanted to look special at the methadone clinic, because they told us we were clean now, you know? And I never got to meet nobody else, you know, from my little 9-block area. You know how dope fiends, they just live and die in a 9-block area, you know. But they start shipping in new stuff, you know, guys, you know, from Pomona. They all had to come out. I said, God damn, I got to get to looking good again, so I got me some wigs and stuff. So, all right, I'm down to the bar that day, and I got the kids. I'd come out of the bedroom that morning, and I told my 5 little kids are sitting there watching cartoons and eating Fruit Loops, you know, and I said, what do you guys think of this one? You know, and they said, God, Mom, you look like King Arthur. So, see, that's why I put the ponytails on. So I made it into ponytails. So that day I'm in the bar, the guy with the slice, okay, you know, so the ponytails, I'd been hitting the wine a little heavy so that when I got down I could feel it a little better because, you know, I mean, that methadone kind of messed up my whole trip there for a while till I figured out the combination, you know. And so I've been kind of messed up. Well, you just can't drink Thunderbird that way. You just can't. And have your eyelashes and everything stay put, you know. So I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm looking at Mr. Wonderful. I think his tattoo said "We kill" or something on the side. Hey, Mama, you know that one. Hey, Mama, you know what it is, and all this stuff, you know. And I'm talking all this stuff to him, and then I'm thinking I'm looking real good, and finally he says, baby, which end of the horse are you? You know? And when I looked over the bar, well, my ponytails, you know, my wig. I thought it was just those strobe lights. So anyhow, see, this wasn't on the other tape. You might have thought twice. I was trying to be good because my husband was there last time. I left him in California. Okay, so anyway, get on with the story. There I go on the methadone for a few years. I got my 5 kids. Every time you get a guy, though, you know, it's like hard for us women, huh? You know, I get one I liked, okay, but I only liked them enough for like a 2-day like, okay? But you know how they are. I mean, once they get in with a welfare mama, you don't get their butts out till the parole officer comes for them. Sometimes it takes 2 long, hard years. You can get a hell of a habit going, you know, for that long. Well, anyway, but I'd take them home, you know, and they didn't like none of my kids. You know, my kids hated their guts, and my kids would throw cereal at their creased khakis, you know, hide their false teeth. Anyway, so I went on with this methadone trip till 1976, and I was a mess. That was when my sister-in-law died. I want to get sorrowful tonight, but I just don't seem to be able to. It's our birthday, you know. So anyway, so my family took me up to Washington to try and detox from the methadone, the heroin, the ribs, the Thunderbird wine, you know. And they didn't know nothing about nothing. They had well-meaning counselors up there and all this stuff. You know, they tried to help me, and they called me, You know, you've all heard this. You're dually addicted. So, if you use heroin again, that will make you drink that wine. But if you don't see Chewy no more, see, that's what my head said. I said, you're probably right. I've never heard it put that intelligently because nobody in the neighborhood ever told me nothing, you know. So, you know, I like drank and stuff, and I ended up in their local nut house. Chemicals make me insane. They make me insane. I lied about a bunch of stuff. They locked me up there. I liked it, I have to tell you. I liked playing basketball in the geriatrics ward. I did. After a few Valiums, and I like old people anyway, you know. And they had us go through this psychodrama thing. Me, multiple personality Shirley. They thought they made multiple breakthroughs with me. I mean, I was being Esther Williams. I was being Ricardo Montalban. I was being John Wayne, you know. I loved it. We had plays. The rest of the little crazy people go, my mother. And so they say, leap up and be his mother. I'm your mother, fool. I mean, it's just so crazy. And they thought because I started talking and playing basketball, well, you know, when they're filling you full of Valiums and stuff, you know, so they thought that I was making progress. Okay, so finally, I get out of Washington. That's a bad state to use, but now I know they have Narcotics Anonymous. Okay, it was hard to get. I was in the Tri-Cities. I used to go over to Pasco, you know, to have to get down and all that stuff up there. But anyway, got back to California. After a little trip through Colorado, those counselors up there thought, now this is where they had a clue, that if they could put people like me to work talking with other addicts on a daily basis, that I might be able to stay clean or change my life. See, they had part of the answer. So they sent me out here to Fort Lyon, Colorado. Back then they had a school for drug counselors, and it was hard for me, you know, but inside I did have that yearning, that thing, you know. I was tired then, and I was 37 years old. So I made it through the school, you know, and you were supposed to stay clean while you were there. And the rest of the school was like alcoholics. And they were real nice people, you know. After a couple of months, I figured them out. You know, they took me to their meetings with them. They were sweet to me. They smiled at me, and you know. But God, you know, I was still kicking like 19 years of shooting stuff and the methadone and stuff. I mean, I hadn't landed, but I did learn something there. You know, they talked to me about praying, and it was the first time in my life that I used to sit on my porch every morning and kind of talk to the sky, you know. And then when I went back to Southern California, as soon as I got that certification, I liked having that because I had asked them, what do you have to do to be a drug counselor? They said, all you got to do is learn to smile and talk shit. I can do that. That was right up my alley, you know. So anyway, thank God for that. So there's a reason in there. I called my old professor the other day from their house and talked with him and stuff, and I told him I thanked him. I said, you know, that was the first goodness I ever knew in my life, you know, and just that little space of time there away from the madness, and went back to California, started messing up again. You know, 3 of my kids had disappeared. I don't even remember when they left. All right, I have the 2 kids left at home. And it's like the days turned into those days we have, you know, days of just quiet desperation and monotony. You know, I was trying with everything in me. I didn't want to see those people no more. I was tired of the talk. I was tired of the baloney. I was tired. You know, I wasn't impressed no more with all the talk about who burned who's old ladies, who's old who, and who's in the joint, who's getting out, and I got tired of writing all them Dear Abby letters to San Quentin. Man, I was tired, you know. I was a tired woman, and I told my kids, if I ever get back on methadone or say I'm going to get back on that stuff, I want you to kill me. I won't go there. I can't do that no more. So on March the 1st of 1981, because I had a landlady that was a member of the other fellowship that every month would come and pick up the rent. And for the first time I saw somebody look at me with some kind of compassion in their eyes. Now, that's not to say people hadn't, but I was desperate now, you see. And when the soul begins to hunger for something different, you begin to see things differently. And I saw her. And the reason she was so kind to me was, number one, just because she had a program, and the other reason was she had a son that I knew out on the street that was an addict. And she kind of tried to, I don't know, talk to me or whatever. So what happened was I finally ended up, I'd been in the nut houses, I'd been in the jails, and finally I ended up in the hospital for the last time for the drinking and the using. And my stomach was all swollen up. I couldn't use the restroom. My face had been swollen up and peeling. But, this had been the consequences for a long time. It's just I couldn't take it no more. And this time I thought I was having a heart attack. And I got up in the morning and on March the 1st of 81, and I walked down to the county hospital, and I asked for help there. And I told them I thought I was having a heart attack. And for the first time I told the truth. And the truth is always short and simple. I told them, you know what, I've been using all my life, and I think I'm dying, and I need help. And I had on these old overalls and an old T-shirt thing and barefooted, pathetic we looked, man. And I can guarantee you that people passing me on the street wouldn't look at me like, that poor thing, she looks like she's dying of a disease. It was like, there goes the, guy, well, you know how we look. And, get your kids away from her and all that sort of thing. So I walked in there, and they put me back in a bed and had those tubes down my mouth, throat, or whatever, and I'm like, just a mess, and they wanted to put me back in the nut house there where they'd helped me to kick there when I got on the methadone because I was pregnant then. And I told them if they would let me go home, that I knew where to go. And they let me go home. And I had to, hang out there for a while in my house. I don't know what you'd call it, at night, seeing all that stuff all over the house. I saw devil's heads floating around. It was horrible, and then I got on my knees finally, and I asked for help. And I heard a thing say, you take 3 steps, or you take 1 step for yourself, and I'll take the next 3 for you. And I just took off walking from my house, and because of that lady, I knew where the club was, and I went down there, and I walked into my first meeting. And when I walked in the door, there was one lady there that smiled at me, and she told me, we have a chair here for you. And so I sat down, and she brought me a cup of coffee, and she helped me to drink it. And like Steve was saying last night, I looked up at the wall, and I saw them steps, and I saw the word alcohol, and but she asked me, are you an alcoholic? I said, no, I'm not. But my life's a little unmanageable. If it ain't all gone, it ain't gone, honey. So anyway, make a long story short, they loved me, they took me in, they helped me. I started going to 2 and 3 meetings every day, and I met a man who explained to me about what I really was, and he took me to my first meeting of Narcotics Anonymous when I was 4 months clean. And when we walked in the meeting, I didn't know there was such a thing around there. There happened to be one little meeting over at a hospital in Riverside. And, of course, you've probably heard all these stories from everybody, about all we had was the white book or, hip pocket recovery. And I walked in with him, and there was one book on the table and a little bit of literature and about, I don't know, a few people. I was still really sick. And he said, get one of those books. And I said, I can't. There's only one. And he said, it's a Save Your Own Ass program. Get the book, And so I did. And from there, because I had this longing, I kept saying, where are my people? Where are my people? Well, they're dead or in the penitentiary or whatever, I found that little address in Sun Valley, and I wrote away, and I also talked with our founder on the phone, and some other things. Kind of helped me to get a little meeting going that went on for a few months, and the addicts were coming to the meetings. I called the parole office. I knew where to find you guys, I told that we had something now. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I was copying the literature, and, I'd go down someplace where I could pay a dime and copy the little bit of literature we had, and just trying to, one addict helping another. And my old friend, she'd done about 20 years out there with CIW, she got out, and she she started coming to the meetings, and she was like my right-hand woman, and we just had a lot of love for each other, and we went on our first NA 12-step call together when this kid that had been coming to meetings, and our 12-step calls are a little bit different than the other fellowship. This kid that had been coming to the meeting had been caught in a crossfire and some family stuff that had been happening out there in the neighborhood, and so he called to say that there'd been some shooting and stuff, and he'd already been stabbed a week before by his girlfriend, so he said, could we come see him? So I went with no fear, because someone had told me when you're doing God's business, he'll take care of yours, and so we went into that place, and his uncle sitting there with his head on the table nodding out, and his old wino father sitting there, all messed up, and the kids on the couch all bandaged up. He was about probably 23 years old then, and when we walked in, his face got that glow, and he told his dad, he says, look, Dad, here comes my NA teachers, and it just did something to me, that hooked me in. And naturally, I moved away for a while. I thought that my old man, that he could get it. And I moved out to the desert again, and he managed to stay clean for about 90 days. And that was when I had about 18 months. He stayed clean long enough to watch his father die and to be a man right there. And then he started using again. And I knew I had to do what I'd been told in the beginning, that if you're with somebody that's using, or you got somebody in your life that you think you can fix, instead you got to get a big broom and sweep house. And so I had to let them all go. All these family people I read off, I had to let them go. So I moved back to San Bernardino, and the few friends that I had in this fellowship helped me to get a place to live for me and my 2 children. I forgot to tell it's like the big part of recovery here is the spiritual awakening thing. And I'm going to back up just a little bit to tell you that I guess the reason sometimes I skip over it is because it's not a big lightning thing or nothing like that for me. It's been a slow warmth and a growing of love and a growing of being able to reach out to you and let you in my home. It took me about 4 years to let you guys come into my house, because I still have the same old lowrider couch with no legs now that I had when I came in. But what happened for me was one morning when I had about 90 days clean, I was getting ready to send off my little Frankie and Jennifer to school there at the elementary school, and we just lived a few blocks from the methadone clinic. It wasn't a good neighborhood, but all my life I had wanted to send my kids off to school with those little Walt Disney lunch pails and with their hair smelling like shampoo and their clothes clean and a nice hot breakfast in their stomach, and that's what I was able to do that morning, and when I kissed Frankie on the top of his head and hugged my little Jennifer, and I could smell him, you lose the sense of smell. You lose everything human from this disease. And I could smell the children, and I could feel their skin, and I went back in the kitchen, and I was just looking out the window there, in this little upper-class ghetto, I guess you'd call it. And all you could see was there was one little tree, and something inside me happened, when I put my hands in I just put my hands in the dishwater, which is something I didn't do very often before that, to wash the dishes. And the tears came to my eyes, and something happened inside of me, and I know now, see, that God had to do it gentle with me, because I'd tried it all, some of my friends had gone to this church place, and they scared the hell out of me, they wanted me to, they took me there, and they wanted me to stop drinking, smoking, cussing, wearing a dress, and chasing men all in one day. I said, screw you, So for me, it has not been about getting good. It's been about getting well. That's it. See, I heard one time where they say, well, they'll lay hands on you and heal you. And this guy once told me, he said, what do you think we do here in Narcotics Anonymous? What do you think we do here? I mean, has any of you experienced the hugs since you got here Friday? Do we lay hands on each other here and heal each other? You bet we do. You bet we do. a couple of years later, when my old man died, and I got called to the hospital just in time to be with him for the last 7 hours of his life, me and my little daughter, and I was watching him throw up the blood. And I've told it so many times, I don't know. Just hearing some of the sadness and the things that we live through here. But I'm one of those great ones for always saying, but you know what? Here, the pain is real. It's not a lie. I didn't make it up to get $20 from you, And the joy is real. It didn't come from no bag or no cheap wine or some man smiling at me or letting me drive his car around the block, It's real. And I never had reality in my life. I didn't know what it meant to be real, to be myself. So when he died that night, and the priest came in the room, and he talked with me about him and everything, and I just wanted to tell him, I told him, you know what, just because he died this way and he has these tattoos all over him, he wasn't a bad man. He was a good worker when we were young. But we have a disease, see, that takes families and rips them to pieces. And he told me that he knew because he had worked with an alcoholic priest. And I was very happy that he was there with us at the end. And this program had taught me to hope, I kept thinking that God was going to turn that around every minute I was standing there, me and my daughter. But the day that we buried him and put him in the ground, all his little old gang, the ones that were still left alive, carried him, and I was standing there thinking, what in the hell is it all about? My family's all using, they're all here. My son drove up late in his little pickup truck. He had to get down before he came. The whole family's all messed up. And I'm thinking, when they're lowering the casket, and they're all throwing the dirt in, and I'm thinking, this is so black and dark and ugly, and, what's it all about? Who cares anymore? And just then, this guy that I hadn't seen there, and I hadn't seen him in a while, he came out of the crowd, and he gave me a big hug, and I said, Chucky, you look so nice, and we had used together. And he said, Shirley, I heard you share at a meeting about a year ago, and I was in the back of the room, and I have 90 days clean, and we can't. Anyway, during that year, I had to go in a week later for surgery, and I wrote a letter to God and gave him all my children. And I asked him to pay special attention to Frankie because he was the most withdrawn of them all. And I went into surgery ready to go. And when I came to, my son, my family, my friends, and Narcotics Anonymous had busted into the recovery room because I was up there too long. My son, my family, my friends, and Narcotics Anonymous had busted into the recovery room because I was up there too long. We don't follow a lot of rules. And the first thing I saw was their faces, saying, baby, we love you, and it's going to be all right. And when they took me down to my room, they had to move that other lady. Well, she didn't know how to use drugs anyway. They got her down, and she went to sleep. They got me down that first night, and I smoked all night, We're different. The room was so full of flowers, there wasn't enough room for another person there. And I had addicts there with me around the clock taking turns for almost 5 days. One time I woke up and some guy was doing his fifth step with me. And I told him, I said, wait, you got to go back to the part about the sex. I ain't dead yet. So that year, that was the year of everything. My boys going to jail and to the mental hospital and, no job. I went into a depression and all this stuff, and people would come by the house. The women would put me in blankets and take me to meetings, and by that time I'd started a meeting again there in San Bernardino, and this one took off. And I can remember the day that we were all like trying to scrape up $100 to buy the transcript for the Narcotics Anonymous text. We needed a lot of help out there, but people started coming to our little meeting at the San Bernardino Community Hospital, and after by 1984, at one time that little Wednesday night meeting had grown into over 200 addicts. In fact, there were so many addicts there. Well, in those days, like you say somebody was getting a year birthday, people would come out of the woodwork. Wow, a year, And I started meeting people from out of the area, and a couple of folks, one guy whose story's in the book, came out and helped us to get our little service deal going. I don't pretend to know how all that worked, but we showed up for the meetings, and hardly nobody ever came. I don't even know how the hell we kept the meetings going. About that time, another young man that helped my son really got H&I going into a women's institution out there, and I got involved in that with him, and that was where I met a guy that I love with all my heart. I've gained things called brothers, in this program, and I have two, that I'm very, very close to, and one of them set the world off, and he's the one that told them about me, and he knows me. He knows me, and he knows the kind of woman I am, and he knows the love I have for the addict that still suffers. During these years, since then, after all that crap came down, I just told God, what, if all you want me to do is take newcomers to meetings and take them to L.A. so I can show them where all the big people are, I'll do it. I'll do it. I didn't care. I really was happy. In fact, I asked a guy one time, a man that everybody respected, I asked him one time, what is loneliness, And he says, loneliness is arrogance. It means lack of faith, because if you get into a lot of loneliness and self-pity, that means that you don't believe God has something good in store for you. So I kept going to the meetings, and at that time, my oldest boy had gone into the recovery home, and I got to go see him when he had 90 days in there for Christmas. And it was one of those places where they shaved his head, and they made him wear a muzzle, and he had to clean toilets every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. Couldn't talk to nobody for 2 weeks because they said that he was talking faster than he was walking. And I thought that was real cruel, and I got real angry until a friend of mine told me, what, Shirley, they're doing something for him out there that you haven't been able to do as a mother. He's been clean for 30 days. Let it go. So on Christmas, when I was able to go see my Bobby, he came walking across the courtyard there to see me, and I saw that thing in his eyes, and he told me, what, Mom, you don't ever have to stay up at night again listening for the phone or to run out to my truck thinking I'm dead of an overdose, because I got it. I got it. And he had it, and he's got it now. He's still helping youngsters like himself. He was just a little gangbanger crazy, and now he's got his own construction company. He's a state contractor, whatever you call it, and he's my beloved son. And then shortly after that, my little daughter followed, and things began to get better. And I had let go of my sisters and my brother, and I said, the hell with all that, and they started coming, and then my other son came, and then and then just on and on and on. And to bring you up to date, what's going on is, I still go to meetings. And when I met my husband, he was in the recovery home with my boy. But I'm not a cradle robber, So I waited till he had 2 years and 1 minute. And probably the only reason I wasn't a cradle robber is because my son was watching. I don't know. Anyway, you get to be my age, and your priorities kind of change. So anyway, we started seeing each other when he came out for an H&I marathon out there in San Bernardino, and both of us have the same kind of love for Narcotics Anonymous. We're both very involved in our recovery, and he's become the father and the grandpa to my kids that they never really had. In fact, for Father's Day that just went by, my husband did, like I said, 31 years in prison, and he never had a wife, children. He never had time. He either chased the spoon or he was rotting away in one of those places. And for him, when the kids brought him all a Father's Day card and had a special barbecue for him, and they bought him these shorts, things he thought things he'd never wear, because his nickname out there was Cochi, and those what that means pig in Spanish, that means he never got enough, and so anyway, we had a big NA wedding, my friends came. We got married in my little daughter's backyard. One son walked me out of the garage. I spent a lot of years in garages, bathrooms and garages, And one son walked me out of the garage, and the other one was the best man, and all my children, my family, and people from NA out in the LA area where we'd been living for a while came out, and I mean, it's beautiful. It's good. We have a good life today. We've been married almost 4 years now. We moved from East LA back out to San Bernardino, and I guess, my thing has been like starting these women's step and tradition studies, what I seen, I guess, with, the old whatever we do. I don't know. So in East LA, I was real lonely when I moved down there away from my area and stuff, and so that was the way I started to meet people. I'd invite people over to eat and start the meeting, and I was still carrying my panel out at CRC, and, just things like that to stay connected, because I was very alone and afraid. But there's two things I know that I knew do real, real good, and my sponsor told me this. I cook good, like you can tell. I cook good, and I know how to love another addict. All right, I know how to do that. It's a gift. And so what happened was, I started that little meeting out there. It's still going. They've moved it from place to place. And then when we moved back to Riverside, I got to kick all the women out there. Got a little meeting started in my house because for myself, I was lonely. And so they started bringing all these pregnant women from a recovery home. But the day that meeting got started in my house, like 90 days before that, I'd had a mammogram taken, and then I never heard nothing back about it. And the day that I had decided, on that Tuesday, I told everybody we were going to have the meeting there at my house. The doctor called me and told me there'd been a mistake and I needed to rush in there and that they'd found something. Well, the word cancer is scary, all right? And my husband had just been diagnosed with that hepatitis C stuff, and he'd started this interferon thing, and we were like, this could have broke our marriage up because neither one of us had much strength to give to each other. And thank God that we have our own programs. And so, I just really would have liked to, the kind of old addict I am, I would have liked to have stayed in my cave and just kind of waited for it to pass, And instead, here came all these pregnant women, just like I'd asked them to at 6 o'clock that night, and we were on the first step. And so I found out those steps work in all areas. I went through all that trip. If there's any women out here that have ever gone through that, the doctors and the second opinions and the third opinions and the terror and the day that I found finally a doctor that I trusted, and he checked everything out and stuff, and they they operated and they got all the cancer, and that's been like my 2-year thing will be in October. And the only thing they did that made me crazy was they took away my hormones. Women that have breast cancer don't have hormones. And for a while there, I was nuts for a while there. I gotta be honest, my husband might come out here sometime. They call us two senior citizens throwing chingazos, okay? I mean, I thought the ideal marriage, I never knew what a marriage was like, was that you go to meetings together. You know how good the couples are. Look in the meetings, just smiling. Honey, would you like? And they blink at each other, and I thought, oh, that's what it's going to be. Now you get this old maniac that used to shoot kneecaps off of people, you know, and you get this woman that used to run around thinking she, you know, with all the wigs and the eyelashes, and you know, and we're going to be healthy, all right? So in the beginning, we went to about 6 meetings where we were, would you like some sweet? No, honey. Yes, honey. Till the day one of us did it the way the other one didn't like. And the growth began, and that was and I'd sit in meetings before that and say, I don't know why you guys just talk about relationships being so hard. They're so easy, you know. And so I got into this big, long inventory, and that was when I found my little sponsor out in L.A. And I was real scared, though, when I took that inventory over to her, because I thought, here I am, 8 years clean. I don't know this woman from Adam, you know. I know she talks and she works at the World Service, and, you know, but so what, you know. And so when I drove up to her house that day, I was willing, not just about this relationship, okay? I was willing because that was the next thing to do, you know. So what happened when I drove up to her house is I prayed, and then I remembered, you know, this is a God thing. It's not a people thing. It's a God thing. So when I went up and took that inventory up with her and shared it with her, you know, she was a loving, beautiful woman that listened. She identified, and I mean, you know, it's never what you think it's going to be, you know. And I was attracted to her because all her kids were addicts and all this stuff, and so, you know, so we got along pretty good. The home group I have now, and I'm going to shut up and sit down because I think you guys are supposed to dance, and that's the main thing you come here for on Saturday nights. Is a couple of things. First off, that I found out that just like everything else, that a marriage is real, all right? And I believe today that my husband and I have a pretty good relationship, because if we don't like something, we talk about it, you know, right away. And in fact, we usually talk on the phone at least every other day from our jobs. And, you know, and we crack up, we talk, you know, and I mean, my husband has taught me a lot about self-worth, because when I met him, I was, you know, like, self-worth was a big deal with me. And I never felt, I don't know, I'd see people in suits and stuff, and if someone in a suit talked to me, it was like all over, you know. I just, I can't talk no more, you know. Wear a suit or get all dressed up. I always felt like this dirty woman from the motel with the 3 winos, you know, when you wake up in the morning, you know, and there you're sitting with 3 winos with no teeth, and you're wondering, was it that one, or was it that one, or possibly all 3, you know. And you go sit on the toilet. You can take a shower and sit on the toilet at the same time. And I'm walking out of there with a cigarette butt behind my ear, lost one shoe and my underwear, on my way down the street like this, trying to look cool, you know, going home in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Guy stopping, hey, baby, you lost a shoe. No, I didn't, asshole. I found one. You know? I'm not that woman today. That's what I'm saying. And the only thing that stands between me and that is you. You know, I guess that's what I wanted to say. The most important word in my recovery is you. You know, if there's something coming between me and you, it ain't supposed to be there. You know, and to tell you the truth, about the last 6 months, you know, I started working in this pilot program for the United States, the California Institution for Women. You know, we've been out there for 2 years working with women that have been there for years and years and years, and some that have just come in. It's a 4-month program, you know, and that's based on, you know, we got we're carrying the NA message in there. And we got the NA panel coming in and all this stuff, but you know what? I'm a giver, you know, I am a giver. And besides that, I still have to carry my paddle and have my kids and my husband, my grandkids, and I'm burned out. I'm burned out. And for the last 6 months at work, I've had this. I got tired of people. Not the women, but the staff. We got a weird bunch. But the sicker I get, the weirder they look. All right, and I know that today. I can't change them. I can only change me, and so it got to the point where I distanced myself from all of them. I hardly talk to them unless I have to, and I was feeling contempt and anger, and this menopause trip is kind of hard, but still in all, I know better. I know better, and I talked to my sponsor, and I talked to my spiritual advisor, and the women in my home group today, and they know, See, I don't care if I'm talking to a woman with 30 days in the women's stag, because I don't care nothing no more about looking real good to you guys. I've seen the look gooders. They're like rockets. Their asses shoot right out of here. So I tell people about these things, but I got to change it. And so what happened is, I probably, if I hadn't got this new little meeting started, this little step study, they let us start it in an Alano Club there in San Bernardino, and there was about 7 of us women meeting, and these guys were trying to peek in the door. They want to see what addict women do, locked up in a room together. So what happened was, we were on the 3rd step, and this girl was reading, and the door fell in, and the fat one fell in, the skinny one. And you know how we are. I mean, we've sat there and puffed away on a cigarette with gunshots going over our head. Hey, man, do you think that's Carlos doing the shooting, or is it Juan? Should we duck, or, so we're all there, wow, the dust is flying, the door fell in, and she's still reading. It takes us a while, And then they get the door pulled back up, and they back up, and they get out of the room, and the girl is reading and looks up and says, was that bullshit or was that bullshit? So then we got mad, we decided, we said, we don't have to live this way no more, So we moved the meeting to my house, and then for a few weeks we were there, and then finally we got into a church out there, and we renamed the meeting, the girls like to name the hole in the wall, 12-step study, because of the fat guy and the skinny guy, and so there's about 6 of us that meet regularly every week, and when I go to that meeting, I'm Shirley, and I'm an addict, and what I'm trying to do and be an example for them is to show them that we don't rise above human being around here, and this thing ain't got nothing to do with a head trip, it's a heart trip. And I heard somebody talk about that. Doesn't matter how much you know, and all the things we do, all right, it's something that happens in here. It happens in here. And we get it through pain. We get it through pain. I swear to you, nobody likes to hear that. But every time that I've been forced against the wall has been when I have picked up that book and started working those steps. That cancer was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I felt humiliated. My ego was on the floor. Like if I should be invincible because I was doing all these things. And I was so humiliated. I didn't want to see nobody. I talked to friends that I'd known from years ago, but my other friends would call on the phone, and I'd just listen to the recorder. We love you. We heard about what happened, and I'd sit there and cry, and I'd say to myself, please don't stop calling. Please don't stop loving me. I'm scared I'm going to die, but I don't know how to get that intimate with another human being and talk to you about it. I didn't. And the people that weren't really in my life, other than these women that were coming from the recovery home for the meeting at my house at that time, it was like they were new. I don't know how to explain it. Like God put people in front of me so I could keep talking. But if it wasn't for these women's stags lately and my commitments, I've probably done everything but use in the last 6 months, to be honest with you. You can't live with resentment, You can't live with that many resentments going. You can't live with all that self-pity and self-loathing. You can't. And I know that I have not kept myself clean for the last few months. I know who did it. I know that God has kept me clean for the last few months. And I know, too, that I'm not so hard on myself about it today because I've been off work for 2 weeks and I'm not exhausted like I was. And it was exhaustion, because I'm basically a loving person. And when I go back to work on Tuesday, they're going to be having a big old graduation day for the girls. We're going to have one of the women that was on my caseload is coming back. She's got 18 months clean. She was raised by the state. She's beautiful. She's in a wonderful relationship. She's got her children back. She's being of service big time in the East LA area. And to see that, it's all worth it. 3 of the women at that meeting in San Bernardino came out of the joint, and most of them had done a lot of time. One of the women that keeps me in reality sometimes when I can't get out didn't make it, and she went back for the habitual criminal thing, and we'd go see her at the county jail, and wrote letters for her and stuff, but it was just too much. And she's found a peace through the 12 steps and has accepted the fact, that she's going to Madeira and that she's going to be gone a long time, and she asked me if I would sponsor her, and I consider it an honor. I love my life today. I talked to my husband on the phone, my sis, a girl I sponsor at Morgan called me. You know what? I've never had this kind of love, and I didn't have this thing coming, man. But you know what? It's the grace of God. And I was told way back that if you're going to meetings, where you're not hearing those 3 ingredients, where you don't hear the word love and you don't hear the word God or higher power and you're not hearing something about the solution, you're here to save your life. Move on down the line and find yourself another meeting. Don't hang out with the pissers and moaners. Right. We're all down once in a while and we need each other and all that sort of thing, but have people around you that know you and love you no matter what, man, because it doesn't have to be that way. And I do feel responsible when I'm in a meeting to carry the message of Narcotics Anonymous and to carry the hope, because there's people walking in off the streets out there in San Bernardino that, like I think it was Daniel said, that most of us don't get to see these doors. Most of us don't. And when they walk in that door, we have a responsibility, I feel, to walk up to them and tell them, you know what, same thing they told me. You're home, honey. You don't have to live that way no more if you don't want to. And that's what we have a responsibility to do. And I can go on about all this other stuff that's happened in the last few years, all this therapy trip and everything. But you know what? That stuff never helped me, and I'm not knocking it. I was told that in the 12 steps that we have $100,000 worth of psychiatric help in a self-help kit. But it takes work, and you got to be willing to pick up those steps and work them. The second step is probably one of the most interesting steps to me. One of these days I'll get it. The first step is the one that keeps me here, believe me. And the 11th step, okay, we were talking about this morning. I almost can get lost in that thing. I can relax so good in my little chair at home, I have my own little room with my own little chair that I've been sitting in with all my little books and meditating in the morning. I get up a half an hour early to make sure I have my time with God before I take off out the door, and I talk to at least one other addict on the phone. Not there at work. I get paid for being at work, and so that's not like by giving it away for fun and for free. Although thank God that a few people like us are there. And I just pray that God will keep me willing to do what I need to do to keep this thing. When I go home tomorrow, when I fly home, my husband and this other guy, that came in off the streets out there in San Bernardino, and he just fired my spirit up, when I was at one of those low points I told you about. He's going to be in the car, and this other old guy, 55 years old, that walked into our H&I marathon about a year ago, kicking a 12-year run on heroin and methadone, and the phone line brought him in, and he was sitting in the back row back there with the sweat and the tears running down his face, and the guy said, you know what, I got him here, and I don't know what else to do. so I'm talking to you and stuff. So I go back there to talk to this guy. This is out in San Bernardino. My husband grew up in East L.A., and I go back there to talk to him, and I just, because I don't like to intimidate people that are sick like that, so I don't come up over them. I like to get on my knees beside them, because it's such a gift to have the opportunity to reach out that way to someone in that much pain. And so I got on my knees, and so he was able to look down at me, and I told him, you know what, me too, some of the most powerful words we have in this program, me too. I went through what you're going through, man, and this is the end of the road if you want it, and I love you. And he fell in my arms and started crying like a baby. And I had to share, and so I told him, I want to take you outside to meet someone, the men outside, and my husband can talk with you. And here I walked this guy out there to meet my husband, and he's looking at my husband, and my husband's looking at him, and he tells him, Clyde, don't you recognize me? And the guy is looking at him, saying, who are you? He says, it's me, man, Gochi. They were from the same gang in East L.A. when they were kids, man. And I mean, tell me there's not a God, and they run into each other. And he'd been sitting there with a gun at his side, ready to blow his brains out when he called Narcotics Anonymous. And the other one that started walking to meetings, he's got 6 years, and he served as chair and co-chair and all that stuff of H&I. I mean, these guys they're beautiful. So my three musketeers are going to be picking me up with my little granddaughter so we can have a barbecue at my son's house, and they're going to bring some NA friends out from the picnic and stuff, and we're going to do what we do best. We're going to spend the afternoon loving each other. Man, I hate for this party to end, and go back to work. But I love it, And our days aren't exciting anymore. They're just real. Me and my husband get up real slow in the morning, like, oh, God, we can barely get out of the bed, And I walk to the bathroom, and he walks up that room, and then we get all spiffied up, and he puts his little suit on and gets his little briefcase and takes off out the door looking like L.A. Law, And I get all dressed up with my foo-foo stuff, and nylons, underwear, everything, I don't lose them no more. And we got a brand new car, first one we ever had in our whole life, air conditioning. Shit, it ain't even hot. I get in, I turn on the radio, the air conditioner, I put the, and I'm just driving off out to the prison, God, we have so much, and our big fights, I guess, would be the really big disagreements would be, when one of us forgot to buy the Swiss Miss for our hot chocolate at night. On Fridays and Saturdays, we see the grandkids, we hug them, we hold them, we roll on the ground with them, we play with them just like kids, and it's hard to become spontaneous and childlike, but through these steps I've learned to. My sponsor used to tell me, when you have a real bad problem, you're feeling sorry for yourself, number one, get into action and do something for another addict. If it keeps going on, go to the park and get in a swing and swing back and forth. It is hard to stay serious when you're a 50-year-old woman swinging in a swing in the park, And I do what they tell me to do, I get dramatic too, Sometimes I got this old sarape I used to wear, throw it around my shoulders, and I head for the desert like Pancho Villa, I'm driving my car, and I open the window, the wind is blowing, and I'm screaming, God! I can't stand no more, And then, I scream it out, and I'm out in the middle of the desert, and looking around, I think, damn, I don't want to stay out here alone too long, I'm just joking, I'm still an addict, so I got to go back home, and, I start getting into town and calming down a little bit, all that hysteria, is gone, and pathology or something they call it, I don't know. I remember when I got my own methadone charts, and opened it, hopeless, crazy, unmotivated. It was hard to get motivated in the methadone group. You know what I mean? How are you feeling today, Shirley? Fine. Did you get a new TV for your house? That was my task. Yes. I couldn't tell him that I had 3 TVs. They were all piled on top of each other because I was too tired to move one to get the other one from the Goodwill. And besides that, it was better when the guys came over. You know, we just leaned back. One of them had a line up on top, and the one on the bottom had the sound. John Wayne's face was about this big. So they told me I could be trained to do certain tasks. I look at all that now, and I remember the first time I saw the book, the real book, and I saw this book, man, I opened the first page, and I sat in that meeting, and the tears ran down my face, and I started crying. And I, anyway, I want to just say one more thing. There's a thing about amends, putting those missing pieces in place. We give up little pieces of ourselves out there every time we do these bad things to people, Well, it's been about 4 years ago now when my grandpa was dying, and my grandpa was probably the only man in the world that I ever respected and loved and adored, and so he was dying. And NA members got some money together, and me and my baby sister drove up there and to be with my grandpa. And the way, because my grandfather at one time when I tried to make amends to him, it makes him cry to see me in pain. So I was told not to talk anymore. Because when I started to say, Grandpa, I'm sorry, and he just he couldn't stand the pain. He loves us so much. And so when he was in the hospital dying, the way that I made amends to my grandpa was I sat there and I fed him Jell-O, and I sang him and my grandma's favorite songs to him, And when I left the hospital and came back to California, just in time in Barstow, my husband and my son picked me up to be at the Las Vegas convention, and on Saturday morning, and when I was sitting in one of the marathon meetings, we got the phone call that he had passed away, and when I turned around, it was like everywhere I looked, my brother-in-law and I and my sisters were crying, and floods of love, and people holding us and being there for us, and you know what? You can have that. The newcomer that came up here, you can have that. It may not look too interesting to you right now, but if you met one person here that you like how they talk, or you like the way they were nice to you, because it's not about how much we know around here, it's about how much we care, and that's what it's got to be. Anyway, just reach out to that person, and again, it's like I just want to say that I love what happens to me when I'm with you, and I love what happens to all of us when we're together. God bless you and keep coming back, and thank you.